What's up everyone, this is Jake with VFX To Go, and today I'm excited to share with you something new from Action VFX. Before I begin, I just want to make clear that they are not a sponsor of this video and that I'm just a big fan and loyal customer of the products they put out. On October 10th, they'll be releasing a practice library with over 500 professionally captured background plates for practicing visual effects. And the best part is that it'll be free. This is an awesome tool for all of you out there who want to learn to create visual effects but might not have the ideally captured footage that would best represent your skills as an artist. Why am I talking about this? Well, I've received early access to a few of the clips that will be available from their library, and I thought this would be a great opportunity to try them out and take you along for the process. With that, let's dive right into it. Alright, we are in After Effects now with one of the shots from Action VFX's practice footage. This shot looks like it's a really cool piloting sequence. It could be in Earth, but I'm going to go with in space because that's my jam. What I love about this shot is it has practical lighting coming in from the sides as if there's gunfire going off. In our case, I'm going to make it blaster fire, so that'll be fun. There's a few things we're going to have to do here. You might say the first thing we have to do is key this, but no, actually the first thing we're going to have to do is track this shot because the way the shot is moving, the camera is shaking. So we're going to have to actually track the shot in order to create a mask so we can chroma key, and I will show you how we do that right now. First thing we're going to do is we're going to create a null, and we're going to take our shot and we're going to hit track motion on the right under our tracker. Now on the left we have our layer window. I'm going to make this window just a little bit bigger, drag it over here to this corner, select rotation, and I'm going to bring the tracker over to this corner over here. Now we're going to track it and see what we get. Alright, seems pretty steady. We have the null selected as the motion target, and we're going to apply X and Y, and we've got it. Okay, so we've got our track. I'm going to create actually two masks. One, first we're going to create a color matte, label that mask, and I'm going to turn that off for now. With it still selected, I'm going to take our pen tool, and I'm going to start drawing in a mask along the edges of the cockpit. If we're going to key this anyway, why am I masking this? Well, you don't want to have to key more than you need to. In this case, in many cases, you only want to key the parts where you're going to overlap with the digital portion. So in this case, we only want to key what's along the edge. Now this shot is really nice because they've done some of the work for us by not having this actress cross the line of the green screen. Not by much. Her hand controller over here on the left crosses a little bit, but it doesn't cross by much. So our key should be pretty good. Close the mask. Okay, so this is our mask. Now you see that I left a little bit of the edge showing, and I will show you why in just a moment. So I'm going to duplicate this mask. So now we have two masks. This one we'll label it mask 2. I'm going to take both of our masks and I'm going to pick whip them to be parented to the null. So we're going to call this our camera null. To what I was saying earlier, you don't want to key more than you need to. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate our plate and I'm going to use the first mask as our alpha channel. And what you'll see here is now that it lives within the white section of the picture right here. Now I'm going to duplicate this plate that does not have a track matte, and I'm going to pick whip the mask 2 to the second plate. So you'll see in this one, in the very first frame, you can see what I was talking about here, how the controller is sticking out just a little bit, so that'll need to be keyed a little bit. But everything else along this edge is looking good. I also noticed that in the original plate, we have these dark lines going up on the background. Now I think that's probably just the sections of green screen that they're probably putting together to use for the background. And that isn't a big deal, but when we key this, the different shades of green, the darker shades of green, are going to make it a little trickier to key along the edges. Now, thankfully, nothing's really crossing that area. It's not going to be a big deal, but I'm also going to show you how to take care of that as well. So I'm going into the original plate here. Now, any changes I make to this are going to affect all the other copies of the plate that I have in the previous composition. And what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use the wire removal tool, using Control Space to access FX Console, which will then give me access to my filters and plugins a little faster. So wire removal, simple wire removal. The first one, I'll put point A right here, and we'll take care of the left side first, and point B up higher. Okay, now we don't see anything happening, but that's because our thickness is only 2 pixels across. So we're going to widen our pixels, and we just adjust the position a little bit. I'm most concerned about this area right here, not so much the top. Great, and that's working nicely. I'm going to duplicate that. I'm going to take that one. Point A is going to be down here. It's going to do some funniness right now because I need to move point B to over here. Okay. So let's drag that to there. Play with point B a little bit, and it's already looking a little better. All right, now we're going to go back into our main comp. Now, why did I create this mask right here? It means that anything in that section won't need to be keyed. I am going to run an advanced spill suppressor now, and I'm going to switch that to ultra and select the green screen as our sample. So now we'll notice any of the green is now gone. It's been suppressed, but now we're left with our last mask. Okay, so I'm going to actually duplicate our camera null. I want to bring that above here. So now we have 2 copies of the mask. One is the inner mask and one is the outer mask. Mask 2 is going to go to camera null 2 in case I need to separate them and put them in their own compositions just to keep my main comp nice and clean. Then I can do that without losing the parent. We're going to use key light. Sample that. Now I like to work in the screen mat, and as you'll see here, this again shows only the area that we need to worry about keying. So the white edge will be our solid alpha, and anything on the outside of that, like right here, you see there's a little bit of grayness, that's going to be keyed out. I'm going to take this layer here and make it its own composition. Key light. We have our background plate here, again, our original background plate. Now the keyed shot, I'm going to label it green, so I know that's where the green screen was. I'm going to duplicate this because I may need it again later. And I'm going to track matte the plate to the key light plate, because as you can see, we turned this plate into a Luma matte that's just black and white. Now what we're going to do is take this plate here that's underneath it, and we're going to use the key light composition as a track matte for this. But right now you say, oh, it's in alpha right now, so let's switch it to Luma, and now we have a nice key. So as you can see, this plate here is the inner mask, and the reason we did that, again, using the inner mask means that we don't have to worry about any of the spill that's on like the major section of the body and the chair and in her hair, any of the things that might be affected by spill from the green screen or similar colors to the green screen. As you can see, even as the muzzle flash hits her on the left and right, it actually gives off a shade of color that is just similar enough to the green screen that her hair is partially transparent when we flicker between them. But we don't have to worry about that because we have the inner mask to hide all that, to mask it, if you will. So now we've got a pretty good key of everything that's going on. I'm actually going to duplicate our camera null because we may need that again. Just to simplify, to clean up our composition, I'm going to put the inner mask in, and its camera null and mask in its own composition. So inner mask. And I tend to put comps into comps into comps, sometimes a little too much, but it helps me keep a tidier main composition. So for that purpose, I'm actually going to take our key light and plate that's track matted to it and put those in their own composition. So I'll say outer key. Because they put in this awesome window above her in the cockpit, and we actually get some really cool reflections going on when the muzzle flash occurs, I'd like to keep some of that. So to preserve our reflections, what we're going to do is we're going to take this plate here. We're going to run key light on it, like that. Then what we're going to do is run channel combiner. We're going to change from to straight to pre-multiplied. I want to see a little bit more. We're going to bring in a little bit more detail. I want to see how much of the reflection we get of the muzzle flash that they have, the practical flash going on. Because it's pretty cool. I want to keep some of it if possible. Let down a bit. Okay. All right. And also now what I'm noticing is that the world around the ship is just kind of sitting still, not doing anything. So we're going to parent that to our camera null as well. So it gives us a little bit of a shake, like everything's shaking. We're going to take a little bit of liberty here too, because in space, you know, if you're moving in one direction very quickly, you could be going very fast, but the stars aren't really going to do much movement. But without that movement, it kind of feels a little dead right now. So we're going to scale the background just to simulate some kind of movement happening here. Keyframe our scale, size it down a little bit. Make sure we're all linear. Okay. So now, all right, that's looking pretty cool. So what I'm also going to do is I'm going to put the entire cockpit, inner mask, outer key, I'm going to put that all in another composition. Now again, I know I layer these compositions more than Russian nesting dolls, but it's something that just helps me keep the main composition tidy. So, keyed cockpit. Alright, so the keyed cockpit is right here. Another element I'd like to incorporate too is a holographic heads-up display, so like a HUD. Now I've already went ahead and designed something. It's nothing too crazy. It's just a couple of elements that I pre-made. These triangles could represent targets, and they get eliminated right there as if they're getting shot down. We're going to drag it into our composition. Now it's on top of everything. We're going to change the mode to screen. We're going to also, it's enormous also, so we're going to size that down quite a bit. Just going to put it down here. We're going to add a camera lens blur to give us some depth. I think about 18 ought to do it. We're also going to give the colors a little bit of bokeh as if they're emitting light. So when they're out of focus, you're going to have a little bit more bokeh at some of these highlights here. So you turn up the gain, turn up the threshold a little bit. Let's crank the threshold all the way to see what happens first. So I like what's happening there. That's nice. Let's not forget to parent it to the camera null. And I'm going to add just a tiny bit of glow to the heads-up display as well. I'd like to hide some of this dead space on the sides a little bit, so maybe I'll give it a little bit of vignetting underneath the HUD. So what I do is create a black solid. I'm going to mask a circle like this. Invert it, feather. Now I don't necessarily want it to vignette space outside, so I'm going to use the cockpit as a track matte, and it should just keep the inside of the cockpit darker than the outside. Now what I like to do is I'd like to have a little bit incoming fire from the enemy and maybe a couple of explosions, so I'm going to start working on that now. I'm going to create a new composition called Explosions. Alright, I'm going to set up a camera, probably about 25 mil. That's fine. I'm going to create a 3D null. That's going to be center in frame. I'm going to switch us over to 2 views. Put that away. From this one, we're going to say custom view, and this one's going to say active camera. Yes. For the purposes of framing, I'm going to bring in the keyed cockpit, and I'm bringing in our camera null from the previous composition. Now, there's going to be 2 things we're going to do, a couple of things actually. First thing, what we're going to do is we want to give this camera the shake that we tracked from the previous composition. So we have our camera null here from the previous composition. Let's label that yellow. And we have this 3D null that is in the middle of the frame. We are going to label that green. Okay, this one is intended to stay in the middle of the frame, and to do that, we're going to turn on our title action safe guide, so we have little crosshairs in the middle of the frame so we know where we are. Now, I'm going to hit U so I can see all of our active keyframes from the camera position. I'm going to take our point of interest from the camera layer. I'm going to hold Alt and click the keyframing button and pick whip that over to position. In the expression, I'm also going to type times -1 plus value. And I'm also going to take away this right here. What you'll see in the expression, it says temp1 for the z-axis. That I'm going to change to 0. Now what this is going to do is it's going to take the information of the shake and reverse it, because if things are moving up and down, we want the camera to actually move in the proper direction. So if the world is going down, that means the camera tilted up, right? If the world's going to the right, that means the camera panned to the left. So we wanted to do the exact opposite of what the tracking data and the null is doing, but we also don't want it wiggling around in the z-axis. So I've turned off the z-axis by changing it to 0. I'm multiplying everything but times -1, so it does the opposite, and I'm adding plus value, because what that will do is it will allow us to keyframe or move the camera to exactly where we need it. So as you'll see, this green null on the bottom right was supposed to stay in the center, but it moved because it's basing itself off the tracking data. Now, if I change the camera's point of interest by adjusting these numbers here, you can see I can recenter the camera to where it needs to be. And that green null is really just a guide for us right now. So as we scrub through it, the camera is actually shaking in the correct direction, amount, and degree. Now what we can do is we can add some 3D planes in here. And by planes, I mean planar, not airplanes, because we're in a spaceship. And I want to just make that clear. I'm going to drag in an aerial explosion and put that in the shot here. Now it's behind her, so let's put it right about there. I'm going to put that in 3D space. Hit the 3D button there. And we are going to take this null that we originally had for the camera's positioning. We'll duplicate it so we can keep one there. But I'm also going to change the color of this one so it's a different one to orange so I can identify it. Now this one is going to be the movement of the world around the ship. So I'm going to type world null. In the window to the left, we can see we have our camera and we have the world null. You can see the explosion happening right there too. We're going to set up a keyframe for our world null's position. We're going to start that. I'm going to rotate our world around here so we can see behind the camera. We're going to start it way behind the camera. Oh, didn't want us to go way behind the camera. There. Start way behind the camera. Now, going to go to our last keyframe, and we're going to move it way the opposite direction. We're going to take that explosion layer, right? And I want it to appear here at, say, this point in time. So let's see, I want it to be that big when it reaches that point. So what I'm going to do is now take the parent pick whip and pick whip it to world null. Now what you'll see is as I scrub through it, you'll see it's going to go flying along with the world null. So kaboom. Now that goes a little fast, so let me just unparent that, and I'm going to reduce the distance of that world null. Start at our first frame, see how quickly it goes by. Okay, that's a fine speed. I think that's a good speed. Now we're going to duplicate that explosion. I'm going to put this one on the right side now. And then I will parent that one to the world null as well. So now we see explosion, explosion, boom, boom. But that's the same explosion. I'm going to replace it with explosion number 2. In my project window, I'm going to select Air Explosion 2, drag it over here, still holding it. I'm going to hold the Alt button and put it on top of the layer I want to replace. So now that is explosion number 2. So I'm really liking the pace of the explosions here. And one thing we're going to do too is we're going to turn on some depth of field with the camera in here. As they get further away, they're going to lose some focus. They get a little more out of focus as they go back. Now we're on a pretty wide lens, so it wouldn't be by that much, but we're also going to add that to the star field as well on an adjustment layer. And we're only going to put 2, maybe. Now we're going to look at our explosions. We're going to color grade these just a little bit because they wouldn't be so light. For the explosions, we're going to create another layer of them, but what we're going to do is we're going to duplicate our keyed cockpit and our explosions, and we're going to move those into their own composition. And title it Explosion Glow. Take the explosions, we're going to use the keyed cockpit as our alpha channel, but we're going to invert it so that way we only see the explosions from outside of the cockpit. The reason we're doing this is so we can have a glow where the light can wrap around the cockpit. So we're going to put on a glow filter and crank it up a bit so it's going to be really bright. And then we're going to add a fast blur and set that mode to screen. And we'll bring it down from here, but we want to start here and see where that gets us. Great. Okay, now we're going to create another composition. We're going to duplicate our explosions composition. We're going to rename that blasters. And now, instead of explosions, we're going to use these elements here. Another element from Action VFX. It's a free element of blasters they have. They have blasters in different styles, colors. If you like the pattern of one, you can actually just shift the hue of the color to something else. They even have a very familiar light speed transition. I wonder where that's from. What we're going to do is we're going to delete most of our explosions, keeping just a few. Well, we're going to keep one for now. And we're going to drag in a blaster bolt. We're going to set our matte to luminance, and we're going to turn our cockpit back on so we can see the position of everything. But we're going to make this blaster bolt a 3D layer, and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. And we're going to move it here. Maybe size it down a little bit. And then we're going to have it fly by camera. We'll have them start shooting before she does too. How about that? And then we're going to zoom out and move our next keyframe. There. Make it a little bigger, a little more threatening. All right, so now we got one blaster bolt. Now let's duplicate it. All right. Okay, now we're going to minimize everything, go back, turn off our keyed cockpit layer, and go back to our main comp and drag in our blasters. Now I'd like them on the inside of the explosions, I think, so we'll do that. Screen. All right, looking cool. All right. We're going to do the same glow treatment to the blasters as we did with the explosions now. And then when we turn our HUD back on, you know, I'm going to add one little thing to our HUD just for funsies. So we're adding this little alert just because I feel like with all this blaster fire and explosions happening around her, there's got to be some sort of warning system. Otherwise, what good a ship is this anyway? And we'll actually turn that glow down a little bit, I think. Yeah, there we go. Now everything's a little more legible. I like what we've got here. This has been a lot of fun. I think we are pretty good for now. I'm going to set this up to render, and we'll swing back and take a look when it's done. This was an absolute delight. As far as I'm concerned, what Action VFX has done here is a tremendous public service. If you're an artist and you've been wanting to truly step up your VFX game, but you might not have had the most professionally captured footage to use on your reel, this library is essential. I can remember coming up as a freelancer, trying to hone my skills, hoping that I'd land a job that gave me great footage to really show what I could do, but I needed a solid reel and experience to land the work. But I needed the work to build up my reel and experience. This library gives you the material to build up your experience and practice your skills so that one day you too can land the work. I absolutely love this, and I can't wait to really dig into their library when it releases. If you're interested in checking out their library and trying out some of these shots, click on the link below and also check out their website to browse thousands of high-quality assets for VFX. Again, this video has not been sponsored by them in any way. I've just been a loyal customer of theirs, and their products have been a crucial component to the work I do and the dozens of movies I've worked on over the years. As always, if you like what we've done here today, be sure to hit that like button and don't forget to subscribe. When Action VFX releases their full library, you can bet I'll be doing more tutorials and walkthroughs with it over the coming weeks, so stay tuned for that. You can find us on the socials, Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok at VFX2Go, and on our website, vfx2go.com. I've been Jake, and I'll see you next time.